few million years ago, a single group of finches from South America were swept by a storm into the Pacific Ocean, where they landed upon a group of 19 islands, the Galapagos Archipelago. It was paradise. There was plenty of food, there were no predators, they flourished, spread rapidly to all the other islands, and soon became competitors. And so, natural selection began to work. The original ancestral finch was a ground-dwelling, seed-eating finch, but the islands had different ecological niches, different environments, different food to offer. The finches had to adapt to different diets to survive: insects, flowers, the blood of seabirds, cacti, and leaves. Those who developed beaks adapted to consuming these diets, survived and reproduced, and those who did not died off. This is the mechanism of evolution, natural selection. Only the better adapted survive and reproduce. It took humanity centuries before this evolutionary concept was finally understood. The history of evolutionary thought can be traced back to the ancient Greeks. Anaximander hypothesized that life came from water, and Aristotle demonstrated that organisms are hierarchical, with plants at the lowest and humans at the top. In the 18th century, Georges Louis Leclerc, Comte de Buffon, said that life forms do change through time, that apes and humans must be related, and that the earth must be much older than 6,000 years, but he quietly hid his radical views to avoid public criticism. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, Comte de Buffon's protégé, was the first who publicly stated his evolutionary ideas. He enunciated the theory of use and disuse and the theory of inheritance of acquired characteristics. The latter is an attempt to explain why organisms are as they are. For example, the giraffes evolved their long necks by each generation stretching further to get the leaves in trees. This is incorrect. Children of professional weightlifters, for example, are not born with enlarged muscles. Natural selection and mutation better explain the long neck of giraffes, but at least he was getting there. When Charles Darwin stepped in the shores of the Galapagos in September 1835, he probably had no idea that his discovery of natural selection would mark the completion of the Copernican revolution. He found 13 finch species, each one inhabiting a different island, each with a distinct beak. He concluded that the evolution of these beaks was an adaptation that helped the finches survive in their respective ecological niches, resulting in the speciation he saw. Soon, he adapted this deduction to the rest of all life on Earth, that all species descended from a common ancestor, possibly from 3.5 to 3.8 million years ago when it was still single-cellular and lived in hydrothermal vents. However, as much as Darwin understood the origin of species, he had no way of explaining how new species actually arise. It was only until Gregor Mendel fathered genetics that it was eventually understood how random mutations or chromosomal alterations play that role. James Watson and Francis Crick, along with Rosalind Franklin, then took the final step to understand the origin of species with their discovery of the molecule that contains the blueprint of life, the DNA. This is the history of the theory of evolution. Darwin describes evolution as a story written on the wings of butterflies. It is a lesson not only on how different we are, but also of how we are all related. As he ended his book on the origin of species, he says, "There is grandeur in this view of life. From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved."